Welcome to Master Your Market. I'm Chris Ashmore. Colleen Callander is your quintessential high achiever. She started out on the shop floor at Sportsgirl, that iconic Aussie retail brand, and she rose through the ranks to become the CEO of Sportsgirl and its parent company, Sussan. It didn't come without a cost, though. She was working too much and she faced burnout. And today, she helps other women face their own challenges and live their best lives. I've interviewed Colleen a number of times now for Business Essentials Daily, and it's a delight to introduce her to a new audience on Master Your Market. Well, Colleen, firstly, thank you for joining me on Master Your Market. Now, I suppose the first question I want to dive deep to start with, and that is, you were the CEO of Sportsgirl, and I understand at the time you faced a fair bit of burnout. Is that right?
That sure is. And, well, it's great to be back here with you, Chris, and great to see you, as always. But yes, that journey for me, I was CEO for 13 years across Sportsgirl and Sussan, and with the company for 20 years. And in 2007, I was general manager of Sportsgirl at the time. I was 36. I had 3 young children under the age of 10. I'm sure many of your listeners can relate to all of those balls up in the air. And I described myself as a red Ferrari, but a red Ferrari that had never put air in the tyres, never put petrol in the tank, never pulled into the pits for a service, just never stopped. This Ferrari wanted to just keep going and going and going and never wanted to leave the track, in fact. And as we know, no car goes that well if we don't do the basic fundamentals for it. And so for me, I was in this great peak of my career. You know, it didn't get, I didn't think it was going to get much better than that. And I absolutely love my job, but I literally hit a wall. It was like the red Ferrari hit a wall. And I remember going home one night saying to my husband, I'm done. I can't do this anymore. And as I said, it wasn't I didn't love my job. I loved it. I just had nothing left. And so I was very emotional about that decision making. And I went into the office the next day and said to my boss, I'm done. And as I said those words, these big sandbags came off my shoulders and I felt great for a minute or two. And then they said, well, you're not going anywhere. So, you know, how can we work through this? So I was very fortunate that I had leaders that could see we can work through this problem and find a solution. So I actually took 3.5 months off. I put the Ferrari in for a well overdue service. I came down to my happy place, which is where I now live in Sorrento. And so from the November to the February, I really learnt to change my life. I built in self-care. I built in boundaries. I got myself a coach. I learned to stop being a people pleaser as much as people pleasers can stop that. And I really made some significant changes in my life to really sort of show up as the best version of me without burnout. And it's actually a really scary place to be, burnout, Chris, because, you know, we were just talking about Japan just before we got on here. And for those people who've been to Japan and been on that bullet train, it's fabulous, right? But it stops at no station. It just, before you know it, you've arrived. And burnout is exactly the same. Before you know it, you're there, you're in burnout town and you don't know how to get out of it. And that's often because we don't know the signs. We don't know how to make changes in our lives to get off that burnout train. So for me, I now get very passionate about sharing with other people, how do we make changes in our lives? And one of the biggest things we can do is set boundaries.
It came upon you towards the end there. You didn't probably realise it until until the end, and you needed those 3 months off, and you got good support from people. But what did you not recognise? Was it simply not having enough breaks during your time as CEO and needing to have a bit more me time? Is that being too simple?
No, I think that's definitely part of it. I think the thing with it is that there are so many causes. There are also so many signs that we need to recognize. But, you know, for me, the more overpacked my schedule was, the more successful I thought I was. You know, the busier I was, the happier I was. The less time I had, the more productive and important I thought I was. And all those things just aren't true at all. For me, I was a massive people pleaser, and I'm sure lots of people listening are people pleasers. I still am today, but you just have to learn to say no, because as people pleasers, we love saying yes. It makes us feel important, it validates us, it makes us feel needed. And so we need to start getting comfortable saying no. The other thing was I completely neglected my health and self-care. To me, I thought, particularly as a woman, as a mother, as a leader, as a wife, that self-care was selfish. How dare I take any time out for me? You know, I've got all of these other people that depend on me and rely on me. So I would always put myself at the bottom of the priority list. And for me today, and as I went through burnout, what I realized was that self-care needs to be a lifelong commitment if I want to show up as the best version. The other thing for me, Chris, I'm still a workaholic today. I'm still the same red Ferrari. I just get to drive her very differently with all of the knowledge I now have and all of the changes I've made in my life. But, you know, burnout comes around because we love working, and there are many workaholics out there as well. So, you know, I really think about burnout for me as a gift, and it really did let me live my life differently. But the one thing I would say when I talk to people across all walks of life, and you talk to people across all walks of life as well, is that people don't have boundaries. We all know that boundaries are important. When I ask people, are boundaries important? People go, yeah, of course they are. Then I ask, have they got any good boundaries in place? And people say, no. Or they have very poor boundaries. So I think the one message that I would love to share with your audience is that boundaries are about protecting the asset. And the asset is you. You are the most important person. And our boundaries are really the guidelines, the behaviors, the rules on how we want to be treated. And if we don't set boundaries for ourselves, someone else will set them for you. And I promise you, you won't like them, because firstly, they're not on your terms. And they're not the boundaries that serve you well. So I think one of the biggest tips I would share with your audience today is to make yourself the asset, set boundaries, and that is really going to be a great start to either not get on that burnout train or get off it if you are on it right now.
Well, you've moved on from being the CEO of Sportsgirl and Sussan. You're out of retail. What are you doing these days?
Yeah, well, I am out of retail. I still work with a lot of retailers. I think, you know, retail will always be in my blood some way. You know, 30 years in that industry, and it's certainly something I'm very passionate about, and leadership in that space. But, you know, since stepping away from the CEO role, I joined a few boards. I started my own business, Callander & Co., which has a number of sort of arms under that umbrella, from Mentor Me Women to keynote speaking. I wrote some books, as you know, and I do a lot of business advisory and consultancy work, really trying to support leaders, CEOs, entrepreneurs, not just build their business, build their brand, create a culture, but really develop themselves into the leader that they want to be, and to become a leader that people choose to follow.
Retail, what is it about, or what was it, or what is it about retail that you loved?
I loved everything about it. You know, I talk about it in my book. When I first started in retail at the age of 16, I even loved taking the rubbish out. Like, that's how passionate I was about being in that environment. Like, there was just nothing I didn't love. I love product. I love people. And as the journey went on, my love for retail just got stronger and stronger. And but I really do think, Chris, you know, no matter where we are in our life or leadership journey, I think it all centers back to people, really, at the end of the day. But, you know, it's a very different industry, I have to say, even to, you know, 3 years ago when I stepped out of that retail role, and, you know, that 30-year journey that I saw. It is a very, very different landscape today. Like everything, you know, it's changed, it's evolved, it's got more challenging. There's more curveballs, there's more competition. You know, the world is at our fingertips today where it wasn't before. So I think it's a very, very different landscape that needs to be navigated in quite a different way.
It's tougher now.
I definitely think it's a much tougher environment. I think, as I said, there's much more competition. The consumer's much more knowledgeable about what he is buying, what they're paying for. So I think it's very different. And I've always been, through my whole journey, whether it's been good, bad, or indifferent, I've always been a leader and a CEO that said, no matter what's happening, let's open the shutters. always. There's a lot of businesses, and I think COVID taught us this as well. I think what COVID did was separate good leaders from great leaders. I think what COVID did was separate good brands from great brands. I think we saw a massive divide during that because it really shone the spotlight on what was good and what was great. And, I've always been someone to say, no matter how tough life is, let's open the shutters when everyone else is closing them down, when everyone else is pulling back, when everyone else is being conservative. Let's look for new opportunities. Let's differentiate from our competitors. Let's push forward. Let's invest. Let's be innovative. Let's really tap into why we exist here as a brand. And I think that's a really important thing for businesses and brands and organizations during these tough times, is to ask themselves, why do I exist?
Right. Mentor Me, that program that you have. Can you tell me a bit about that?
Yeah, I'm really proud of Mentor Me. It started in COVID, and it really was just something I was going to do in COVID because I had a lot of people calling me saying, hey, Cole, this is happening, that's happening. How can you help me, kind of thing. So I created Mentor Me Women, and it is just an online program, and I take it into companies. And it really is about inspiring and empowering people to lead with confidence in business and in life. And it's something, as I said, I thought I'd just do through COVID, and I've had hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of women go through the program. And it really is about the power of self. It's about the power of leadership, the power of your purpose, the power of your values. And it's a 1 hour a week program, but it really is about investing in yourself and really putting in the work. I talk about one of the most incredible things we can do to grow and evolve and learn and step outside of our comfort zone is to do some work and be self-aware. And that's really what the Mentor Me Women program does, is it opens up some of those conversations to really allow yourself to get in the driver's seat of your life and in your leadership as well. And I think there's too many people go through life being a passenger, and we need to be in the driver's seat of our lives, because when we're in the driver's seat, Chris, we get to choose to go left or right. We get to choose how fast or slow we want to go. We get to choose which roads we go down and where our destination finally ends up. And we also get to choose who comes in as a passenger or who we ask to get out of the passenger seat. So I think when we're in the driver's seat of our lives, we have much more clarity. We make much better decisions. We have a much clearer vision on where we want to go and what we want for this one life that we get.
Fantastic. Is it easier to be in control in the driver's seat, let's say, of your life when you're running your own business, or can you still get that when you're working for the boss? Or it doesn't matter?
I think you can have it in both. And in fact, I think, when you're in your own business, as I've found out over the last few years, it's a very different dynamic to working for a big corporate organization. Some things are better, some things are worse, like anything in life. But I think it doesn't matter where you are in your life, your leadership. You can be in the driver's seat of your life, and that does start with self. You've heard me talk before about leadership starts with self. 70% of leadership is the way we lead ourselves, the boundaries, the structures, the disciplines, the guidelines, the rules we put in for ourselves. And that's really important, because all roads start with self. Great leadership starts with self. Confidence starts with self. Self-awareness starts with self. So, often people look to other people to build their careers and give them the vision forward. Well, that's actually not true. That's not the right direction. What we need to do is actually start with ourselves, because we are the master of our own destiny at the end of the day.
Indeed. Now, Colleen, this podcast is called Master Your Market. How do you market yourself?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I've got to say, for 20 years, Chris, I didn't. I was a very under the radar CEO, right? My whole focus was my brands and my people. And, when you have your own business, mastering your market, and I love this new podcast you've got going, by the way, is a really important thing to do. But that also starts with thinking of ourselves as a brand, okay? So I am the brand of Colleen Callander. You are the brand of Chris Ashmore. And really, our brand is our reputation. It's what people think about us when they hear our name. It's what shows up when we put our names into Google and search, you know. It's really how we present ourselves on social media, and it really reflects what we stand for and how we engage with people. So when we think about, you know, how we market ourselves, the first thing I would say to people is you need to think about and define how do you want to show up in the world first. And really, what's your story? What's the message that you want to share with the world? Why is it important? Why should anyone care? What's your authentic style? And then also, one of the really important things is how do you share that? Where do you share that? You know, that platform, that right platform for you, you know, whether it be LinkedIn or whether it be on Facebook or wherever it might be, you know, what is your platform to connect? And then I think the other thing about, you know, thinking about marketing yourself is consistency is always key with everything. You know, showing up as, I always say, your authentic self, but, you know, if you really want to market yourself, then you need to be consistent because it's all about repetition, right? The more people see you, the more they hear you, the more the message gets out there, that consistent message, the more people will resonate with you and the bigger following you will have. So I think it's really important. How do you want to show up? What's your story, your message, your authentic style, your platform, and consistency? There's 6 really clear steps on marketing yourself.
Fantastic. And what platforms do you use, and how often are you daily uploading things?
I would say I was always sort of, well, again, 20 years as a CEO, I didn't have any social media. But, you know, I'm on LinkedIn and Instagram. I do think for professionals and, you know, for probably a lot of people listening to your podcast now, I find LinkedIn a really great tool for people to connect and share, and not only share, but also learn. There's a lot of really great information. You know, people put out great stories and great articles, but definitely I would say my number one platform would be LinkedIn, and that's certainly where I connect with a lot of people.
Right. Now, Colleen, you've written a couple of books. Well, the first one was Leader by Design, and the other one you co-wrote with Shana Kennedy, Elevate, Unlock Your Extraordinary Potential. Mm-hmm. How important have those books been for you and your brand?
Yeah, it's a really great question. And I think that, you know, definitely having books elevates your brand, if I can use that word, because it's one of our books, but, you know, it definitely elevates your brand and your positioning for sure. In fact, some people talk about it like your business card, you know, that's kind of a little bit how it can be. For me, I think the opportunity to write books was much more than that. For me, it was really the opportunity to inspire and influence and impact many, many more people than I could when I was a CEO. You know, I think about this decade of my life, and, you know, I've talked about this before. I write my life in decades, my 20s, my 30s, my 40s. I'm now in my 50s. So I think about this next decade as I'm in this really big playground, and there are so many more rides out there. And so for me, that book, both of my books really, the one I've written on my own, Leader by Design, and the one I've written with the amazing Shana Kennedy, really allows me and us to get out there on a much bigger playground and share our message. And that message for me is something that's really important, which is really about changing the era of leadership, leading with kindness, creating leaders that we want to follow, and, you know, really creating cultures in organizations that people want to show up to and want to be part of something bigger than just themselves. So there are so many key messages that I want to get out there, and for me, a book is an amazing way to do that.
Fantastic. Now, Colleen, you've shared a lot, but before we go, any final words of advice or inspiration for those listening who are perhaps starting a business or want to grow their business, or any sort of life advice?
Well, I love the one about, you know, growing a business or starting a business. I think, Chris, to anyone, no matter whether they're starting, when they're in the middle, whether they're, you know, their business is already quite mature but maybe needs a bit of, you know, evolution, I think the question I've always come back to as a CEO and business leader is why? Why start the business? Why is the business important? And when we think about brand purpose or your business, why it exists, it's not just to make money. Okay, we know money makes the world go round, and that's important because we reinvest and we grow and we get great talent and we open amazing stores and all sorts of things. But, Your real purpose and your why is beyond making money. So why does your brand exist beyond making money? What's the impact that you really want to make on people and their lives? And I think that's a really important part of it. And I don't think enough brands think about that. How can you make an impact in not just the customers' lives, but in society as a whole? How can you build real emotional connections with people beyond what you sell? How can you differentiate from your competitor? And I think the brands that do that, the businesses and organizations that really understand why they exist, will be the ones that not only survive through challenging times, whether it be COVID, GFC, or anything else that comes our way, and there will be another pandemic of some sort. And I think the ones that really understand why they exist will be the ones that thrive.
Fantastic. What a great way to end. Colleen, thank you so much. We'll have your details in the show notes for those who want to check out what you're doing or want to get in contact. But for now, thank you.
Thanks so much once again, Chris, and I'm super excited about your new podcast. I know it's going to be amazing, and you're going to be able to share lots and lots of wisdom and knowledge with people. So congratulations, and I look forward to watching your continued success.
Fantastic. Thank you.